So, the final step in our four-step series for how to rebuild a relationship with movement that is joyful and nourishing after you've gone through a history of diet culture and any shame-based motivations for movement. The final is the glue that holds everything together, and it's really the main ingredient that um, we need to change anything about our movement practice, and that is accountability. So, when I say accountability in this context, I mean generally the structures that you put in place that make it easy for you to stick to the new way of moving and the mindset and the approach and the consistency that you want. So I've broken this down in the newsletter this week into people, places, and protection. I was trying for the alliteration. So essentially, you want to surround yourself with people who are in alignment with your values around movement and who understand what your new movement why is, um, what your new kind of positive internal narrative around movement is, and helps reflect that back to you in those moments when you're maybe feeling uncertain or you're kind of tending towards being self-critical. We need those people in our lives to basically help us become the person that we desire to be. And then the second is places. Now, movement happens in all kinds of places, and it may be that you only, you have your home, and so you have a lot of control over the space where you're moving, and so you're able to set it up in such a way that it's very conducive to moving in a positive way. But for a lot of people, getting active requires using some kind of a facility that may not be lined up with your mindset, and in fact is probably, spewing the same diet culture and narrative and rhetoric that sells all the stuff that, makes you show up and buy a membership and feel guilty at the beginning of the year. So it's very difficult to stay true to this, positive self nourishing kind of relationship with movement with that in the background. So I find it's helpful to just sit down and have a conversation. You may not be able to change the posters on the wall. You may not be able to change, the corporate advertising, but I think it's powerful and to sit down with your trainer or the teacher of a class that you're attending, or maybe even the owner if it's a studio or a tennis club or whatever you're going to, and just saying, hey, this is my history. I'm really looking to create a new relationship with movement. And, your facility offers me something that I really enjoy doing, but the only way it's going to work for me is if I know that I'm going to be supported in not having a weight loss mindset, in, speaking kindly to myself and not using movement as punishment. And first of all, I think it's just beneficial for the industry if more people are saying things like this, and maybe we'll get away from being so steeped in these values that are not really lined up with how people really want to feel about themselves. But also, what I've found in the past, and I've had these conversations before, and they are nerve-wracking, but actually, most people are really, really supportive. I mean, don't forget that the people that go into these jobs, they love to move, you know? And they're just excited to share their passion, and they may not actually be that excited about the idea of having to do, fat assessments and body weight, whatever checks every now and then, and they can just focus on doing what they love, which is helping you move more fluidly with more strength or with more attention or whatever it is. So I think that those conversations will probably go better than you expected. Um, and then, then you'll have the ability to sort of call out things that don't feel good to you, and then you can steer clear of them. And I think you'll feel safer if you're in an environment where you know you're supported. And then the final thing is really specific to you is to protect your path, protect your peace, protect your goals by doing the things that make it easier for you to show up for yourself. So if movement happens easier in the morning or night or lunchtime, do it then. If there's music, a certain soundtrack that works for you, pull that in. If, it's certain kinds of clothes or certain kinds of um, even like a motivating, treat that you want to have after, like whatever. The point is that when you're trying to steer ourselves, we want to think about the game of incentives. And, there are things that will make it easier for us to align our behaviors into a new way of thinking. And at first, it may feel like climbing uphill. I mean, everything about this is going against the grain in terms of what, the surrounding culture expects of you. But you'll create cues for yourself. When I hear that song, that helps me turn inward. That helps me focus on what my body is doing. That helps me be more exploratory. Um, when the sun is coming in the window at a certain angle, that motivates me to go take a walk. And so I want to go take that walk and think about how good that sun's going to feel on my face. Of course, where I am, it's not happening that often, but for those of you in sunnier climates. Yeah, so what this requires is a certain level of self-awareness that I think we have to cultivate in general, which hopefully you've already cultivated as part of your making movement exploratory in step one. Um, but when we check in and we notice like what is motivating to us and what helps us show up for ourselves, then we can sort of tap into those things. But the first step is to know what they are. So this is quite a journey, and I look forward to hearing how it's going for you. Make sure you let me know, especially if you're in the newsletter, reply to any of the series and let me know how those steps are working for you. And if I can be of any help, reach out for a coaching call, and I'd love to chat with you. See you next week.